In 1945, the Japanese experienced the results of the probably most expensive military research project in history, when 2 atomic bombs devastated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. However, this expensive program, the Manhattan Project, was originally intended to counter a similar program in Germany. This brings up the question, would the Western Allies have nuked Germany if the bomb had become available in time? Our first clue for an answer to this question is to study why the Manhattan Project started in the first place. Before and during the war, a large number of exiles from all over Europe swept to America. Among them were the foremost scientists of their time: Enrico Fermi, Niels Bohr, Albert Einstein, Kurt Gödel, John von Neumann, just to name a few. These men perfectly knew that in Germany there still were some top experts on nuclear questions left. Among them were the famous Otto Hahn, Werner Heisenberg and Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker. The exiles were aware what their colleagues remaining in Germany were able to do. They urged the creation of the Manhattan Project for that exact reason, building the bomb before the Germans could. Therefore, the original raison d'être of the Manhattan Project is a good indication for the intended use of the bomb. The atomic bomb was built to counter Germany. Therefore, it is a good possibility that it would have been dropped in Germany. But what if the nuke is a dud? An atomic bomb dropping in the middle of a German city ready to be studied by the feared German scientists would be the worst case scenario. This would give the Germans a realistic chance to use a nuke against the Allies, although they lagged behind in the research. Dropping the gadget on Japan would be less risky from the perspective of the Americans, since they thought the Japanese atomic program as not advanced at all. We actually have proof in writing about this train of thought through General Groves, who was the director of the Manhattan Project. In the minutes of the Military Policy Committee meetings we find: the point of use of the first bomb was discussed, and the general view appeared to be that its best point of use would be on a Japanese fleet concentration in the harbor of Truk. General Steyer suggested Tokyo, but it was pointed out that the bomb should be used where, if it failed to go off, it would land in water of sufficient depth to prevent easy salvage. The Japanese were selected as they would not be so apt to secure knowledge from it as would be the Germans. Truk, today Chuk, is a lagoon in the Pacific. It was one of Japan's most important naval bases. Please note that in this very first discussion of targets, an all-out military target had been selected. The next indication in writing is from September 1944. Regarding the bomb, Churchill mentioned to Roosevelt: it might perhaps, after mature consideration, be used against the Japanese, who should be warned that this bombardment will be repeated until the surrender. Both the statements from before are from a time when Germany was still fighting and the Allies had to expect to reach Berlin only after a bloody fight. Even under such circumstances, it seems like the Allies preferred to drop the bomb on Japan. Macchiani presents another piece of evidence for Japan being the primary target. This quote is from a memorandum on nukes on the 23rd of April 1945, only days before the German surrender. Macchiani makes it out to be his most prominent piece of evidence. While our plan of operations is based on a more certain, more powerful gun-type bomb, it also provides for the use of the implosion-type bombs as soon as they become available. The target is, and always was, expected to be Japan. A composite group of the 20th Air Force has been organized and specially trained and equipped. All 3 pieces of written evidence speak of Japan as the primary target for an atomic attack. This video began by talking about the scientists participating in the Manhattan Project. Macchiani asked some of them what they knew about the supposed target of the bomb. He interviewed Joseph Rotblat, Hans Bethe, Glenn Seaborg, David Hawkins and John A. Simpson. These scientists told him that they were not privy to the target decision, but always expected the bomb program to be intended against Germany. There also is the issue of the bomber plane carrying the gadget. Little Boy and Fat Man had been transported to the targets by a B-29, but this plane became available in July 1944 only. However, it was deployed against Japan instead of Germany, but this was due to reasons which had nothing to do with the gadget. If the Allies would have been determined to use a nuke against Germany, they probably could have brought over a squadron of B-29s to European bases. However, German air defenses were much stronger than in Japan and could have proven problematic. They would have tried everything to down these brand new planes in order to investigate them. Alternatively, the Americans could have borrowed a Lancaster bomber from the British. With modifications, this plane should have been able to carry at least Little Boy. However, there were generals like Henry Arnold who argued that an American bomb should be dropped by an American plane. Finally, there is another issue regarding Grant's strategy. The overall strategy of the Western Allies always was Germany first. We can look at the historical reasons for the deployment of the bomb against Japan. First, sending a signal to the Soviets. Detonating the bomb in the future occupational zone of the Soviet Union would send a much clearer threat than dropping it on Japan. Second, showing financial responsibility. The bomb cost enormous amounts of money. The spending had to be justified by using it. Of course, such an expensive new weapon would be used on the main target and not on a subordinated one. For example, it would make no sense to drop it on some Balkan village. You see, when you spend $2 billion while people suffer in the war economy and nothing happens in the end, you are evil. But if tax money ends up killing a lot of people, you are a hero. And ultimately, we have to discuss the thing that explains everything in the world: racism. Surely, the United States would not throw an atomic bomb on white people. In contrast, the US government would not hesitate for a second to consider killing ethnicities with oddly shaped eyes in masses. Well, yeah, no. This point is easily refuted. Through the strategic bombing campaign over Germany, hundreds of thousands of civilians died. Getting an exact estimate is hard, but Verrill puts it at 600,000. To this come hundreds and hundreds of thousands of others all over Europe who died in aerial attacks and others who died indirectly because of nutritional or similar issues. In the case of Japan, exact numbers are even harder to find, but the estimates range from hundreds of thousands to a million. In the end, the civilian casualty figures are similar for both countries, so we cannot conclude that the US would rather kill non-Caucasian people. Mind you, I know that in the battles in the Pacific, racism played its role on both sides. However, it did not seem to have affected the decision to kill or not to kill. To deliver the coup d'état, consider this. In order to win this war, the US government proved to be willing to send 400,000 citizens, most of them Caucasians, to the slaughterhouse. So, let's look at the points we discussed and figure out if the atomic bomb would have been dropped on Germany if available. The criteria of nuclear deterrence points towards Japan being the primary target. So does the written evidence. On the other hand, the scientists expected Germany to be the target. The B-29 bomber was built for carrying nukes, but it was not solely intended for the Pacific theater, although in the end it was deployed there only. Therefore, I will classify this point as neutral. The overall grand strategy of the Western Allies was to subdue Germany and then turn to Japan afterwards. And finally, racism was irrelevant for this decision. We see here that the evidence is not exactly overwhelming. That leads me to this conclusion. Japan was on the receiving end of the Manhattan Project because of the Germany First strategy. Paradoxically, this led to a German surrender before the bomb was available, although the nuke was built because of Germany in the first place. So why do all the written sources before the surrender of Germany only mention Japan? The answer is that even in 1943 it seemed unlikely that the bomb would be ready before Germany was at least close to surrender, so everybody turned the attention towards Japan. In addition, Japan was considered for a potential first target because the Allied scientists were more afraid of the German colleagues than the Japanese scientists, probably because they knew them better. This was some kind of nuclear deterrence. Had the atomic bomb become available before the surrender of Germany, I think there's a good likelihood that at least one German city would be targeted. When more bombs became available, the targets could alternate between Germany and Japan. We will discuss potential targets for such an attack soon enough. At the end, I need to say thanks to Ayun Makiyani, who wrote an article about this topic. Also, thank you to Alex Wallerstein, who discussed the subject on his blog as well as his comment section. All of them provided inspiration for the criteria discussed in this video, and I would not have been able to find many of the sources without them. You will find the links to their works below. Soon there will be a video about potential targets in Germany. Which German cities do you think were most likely to be targeted by an atomic bomb? Tell me in the comments. Do not forget to share, like and subscribe in order to find out about my answers to this question. So long, we'll meet again. Stay critical, stay curious, stay free.